issues. I think just if you take on notice just the details you talked about before about the contents of the $44 billion commitment, let's call it a commitment, then that way it covers off those two programs and any others that might fit into it.
So if it's helpful, I can give you, the colleagues just give me the numbers here if you'd like it now.
Okay.
So the forecast that goes to the makeup of that is that we forecast the affordable housing bond aggregator loans to be $14.6 billion in total, and the nominal value of the 25-year availability payment contracts to be up to $28.7 billion, with a contingency amount of $8.7 billion at this time, noting that it is not a cash commitment, it's simply backing the commitments we're making.
But some of them are cash commitments because their payments will be made in the future.
Sorry, the cash commitments we are making, the liability cap is not a cash commitment.
The liability cap is not a cash commitment. Yes. Okay. Before we go to the chair and some other issues, who does the briefings for the ministers when they're asked housing questions in Parliament? Is that a Treasury thing?
Treasury supports Minister O'Neill on that matter, Senator.
But that's not Housing Australia?
No, Senator, although we would very often collaborate about material that was required to support the Minister in public events.
So if a minister's asked how many houses have been completed by a program, that information is provided by the Treasury to the Minister?
Yes, Senator, working closely with the Minister's office.
Okay. So the Housing Australia Future Fund, the evidence was that it's completed 880 odd houses today. That was the evidence. Last week I asked Senator Wong how many houses it had completed and she said 5,000. So I'm just wondering if you could explain the discrepancy between what Senator Wong said, which was 5,000 houses built from the Housing Australia Future Fund, and what Mr Langford said today, which is 880.
Senator, it's 895 in the Housing Australia program.
895, but not 5,000.
Talk about the total program.
Yeah. Senator, I haven't seen the transcript of that engagement in the Senate, but the government has a range of social and affordable housing commitments.
No, the question was very clear. I asked the question. It wasn't about other programs. It was about the Housing Australia Future Fund.
Senator, what I can say is that there are 5,660 social and affordable homes already delivered by this government.
Yeah, that wasn't the question. Yeah,
I can't comment on that.
I'm sure that's a talking point that was provided, but it was incorrect. So that's okay. It's not on you. We'll write to Senator Wong and ask her to correct the record. And misleading the Senate is not a great approach.
Well, you know, I'm not going to take your word for it on that.
Well, he just told you 890, not 5,000.
And that is the number that I gave you just a few moments ago. 5,500 homes delivered across the Commonwealth's housing programs, including those supported by the HAF. That is, I imagine, the answer that Senator Wong gave you. I will have a look at the.
No, she said 5,000, not 500.
Well, I'm saying 5,500. 5,500, so more, not less, more.
Yes.
And the problem. The problem with your argument,
here we go,
right, is
political speech time.
You start from a small number and every day it gets bigger. Every day it gets bigger. And I understand all this is very complicated for you. And maybe this is the new Liberal Party, you know, if you don't know, vote no.
I've got the timer on. We'll time you.
If you don't understand it, you're opposed to it, we'll try and help you understand it. That's what we'll try and do.
Look, I'm happy to be told that I'm stupid, but I really don't think these political speeches are all that productive. Just trying to get to the bottom of things. Transparency is a terrible thing, isn't it?
Well, we're trying to help you, Senator.
Well, I really appreciate your kindness.
Well, we're just responding to our responsibilities. It's not kindness; it's our obligation.
I think we'll try and move on now. Can I have
and hang on a tick. Hang on a tick. Specifically on what you said, claiming that somebody misled. This is what Senator Wong said.
40 seconds.
5,000 social and affordable homes have been completed through the Commonwealth programs. A further 25,000 are in construction and planning, and she goes on.
Have you got
that?
The
Was her.
Why didn't you read the question?
That was her answer.
Why didn't you read the question?
Well, this is the words that she said from her mouth to you, and you trying to characterise that.
No.
Again, in a sort of smear. She said 5,000 social and affordable homes have been completed through Commonwealth programs.
Well, I asked you about the Housing Australia Future Fund. You know that.
You get a question, then you get a supplementary question, then you get another supplementary question. Just use them better.
All right. That's gone for 1 minute and 20 seconds. I'll press pause.
I'll add another 1 minute 20 onto your time, Senator Bragg. And I do note we are under time pressure.
Okay.
We are
Now,
more than 2.5 hours behind.
Sure.
So.
Well, I just have a few questions. So, I want to ask the Chair, Mr. Tagney, some questions, and it might be useful to get Ms. Armour to come up as well, if that's possible. So I just want to go through some of these board issues. So you've now been briefed on these issues that were canvassed in the Treasury report done by Intersection.
I've been made aware of the report, Senator.
Yeah.
I have read the redacted version of the report, which I received after the OPD production of same. So my exposure to that report is limited to the reading of the redacted version on the 15th of January.
Okay, and Ms. Armour, you've been on the board for the whole time that these things were being undertaken in the report, haven't you?
I joined the board late October 2023. My first board meeting was November 2023.
And you've also been briefed on the recommendations from that report?
I've seen the same document that you've seen.
Yeah, okay, and so what confidence can you give the community now that the recommendations that were made about these matters have been addressed and there are better risk management protocols in place?
Sorry, I haven't seen a report that says anything about risk management protocols, Senator. I've seen a report that's heavily redacted, but that says that the matters raised by the complainant, whomever the complainant was, were in relation to the former chair, were not substantiated. That's all I've seen.
So what about the governance issues at Housing Australia?
What governance issues are they, Senator?
You don't think there are any governance issues at Housing Australia?
I'd like to know what the governance issues are.
Well, what did the Deloitte report say about the governance at Housing Australia?
So the Deloitte report was a review that was done real time during the HAF round 1 at Housing Australia's request, and it made some observations about things that need to be addressed. For example, it made an observation that we needed to update our board charters. We have updated our board charters. It made an observation about board members who are not part of the Audit and Risk Committee attending the Audit and Risk Committee.
Well, that's a governance issue.
That's a difference of opinion, frankly, between the people from Deloitte and not only Housing Australia, the guidance given by the Department of Finance and the practice of the other CIVs. If you have a look at the practice of the other CIVs in the Commonwealth, the other members of the boards of those organisations attend the Audit and Risk Committees.
Well, I've got to say, I'm surprised to hear you say that, because I don't think that there'd be many occasions when a member of the board who is not a member of the Audit and Risk Committee would just turn up to a meeting.
Well, I think you're completely wrong, Senator. That's absolutely standard in listed companies in Australia for other members of the board who are not a member of a committee to attend.
Well, it could be a huge conflict of interest.
Where is the conflict of interest?
Well, it could be.
Under the PGPA Act, the board is responsible for the financial reporting and risk management systems of the organisation. Under the Housing Australia Act, the board is responsible.
So you think it was fine for the...
It's absolutely fine. We discussed it both with the Deloitte representative at the Audit and Risk Committee.
So what did they say?
They said they thought the key element was to ensure that the Audit and Risk Committee was able to give a different perspective from a meeting where the chair may normally direct, which is a board meeting. We thought about that, we considered it, and we didn't have the same issues that they were raising.
Okay. But, I mean, at the last hearing when you were here, I think you were here then, the evidence was that 25% of the staff had turned over. I mean, you had a board meeting this week, didn't you?
Yes, we did.
And did you discuss the staff survey at that board meeting?
Yes, we did.
Okay. And how's the staff going there at Housing Australia? How's the morale?
Well, I think Housing Australia is performing really well. We're very proud of the work that Housing Australia is doing, and the efforts of our staff in delivering the programs is exemplary.
Right.
As to the details of the survey and the way we're addressing it, I think Mr Langford is best placed to address that.
You don't think that these issues are governance issues, though, for the organisation?
Oh,
If a quarter of the staff is turning over on a regular basis and the staff surveys are terrible and you're losing senior executives on a regular basis, plus you've had to have a Treasury investigation into board members, I mean, most people would look at it and say, well...
Senator Bragg, if it's pretty unexceptional if a complaint is made about a person, for that complaint to be investigated. That is probably best practice. And in the case where the complaint or the concerns that have been raised pertain to a chair, it's the appropriate person in the Commonwealth is for the relevant department that looks after that organisation. I would have thought that's just good practice.
So what happened with have you got a CFO at the moment?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Okay. And have you got a chief legal officer?
The chief legal officer has recently resigned, Senator.
Oh, when?
I think with an effective date of the 4th of February, but I can take that to check. So very recently.
Okay. So how many of your direct reports have you lost in the last year?
When you say lost, Senator, I've made
how many people report to you in the org chart?
So if you'd like me to run through them, Senator?
No, just how many are there?
So I've made
6 or 8?
So I think because you're asking about context of over the last year, it's important to step through. So yes, I've made some staffing changes during the last year. I've also made some changes to the organisational structure. Currently, I have a Chief Investment Officer that looks after our more homes, looking after the social and affordable housing programs.
Yeah.
I have 2 executive leaders that are responsible for the respective programs in home ownership, a CFO, a Chief Risk Officer and a Chief Operating Officer.
Yeah.
Senator,
so what did the staff survey say? What was the key takeaway?
So, Senator, the staff survey said that at a headline, 5 out of 10 staff are very engaged.
5 out of 10?
So, Senator, 2.5 are sitting in a neutral category and 2.5 have expressed dissatisfaction.
So what do you think about that?
So, Senator, when we look at the survey, and we take this very seriously, we understand it's been a very challenging operating environment. There is a very contested policy space that there is frequent public commentary that many of our staff have taken very personally because they are putting in enormous efforts. We've also taken on board feedback that they've given us about clarity and communication. There is a strong sentiment about the prolonged uncertainties through the course of last year in what was a very highly contested, or remains to be a very highly contested policy space where there was, in the election, a lot of uncertainty for Housing Australia's programs that has created ongoing challenges for staff. We've had to build a lot of organisational systems and structures to cope with a much larger expanded remit and the scale, risk and complexity of the organisation.
Yeah.
There is really valuable feedback that staff have given us. We've given a number of briefings to staff and we've committed an action plan around the steps that we're taking to encourage a work environment where everyone feels they can come to work and do their best work and be well supported.
Okay.
The key themes of that, Senator, if you'd like me to step through it.
Well, so 50% of the staff are not engaged?
No, that's not what I said, Senator.
Say it again then. So
I said the survey tool we used tells us that 5 out of 10 staff, we had a very high response rate in the order of 86%.
Yeah, that's good.
So very positive staff want to express their views. 5 out of 10 staff have expressed a view that says that they're engaged. 2.5 have offered a neutral perspective. That is to say that there is room for improvement. And then 2.5 out of 10 have expressed a dissatisfaction sentiments that express dissatisfaction.
So what are you going to do to drive the turnover rate down?
Well, Senator, turnover rate is absolutely an important factor, but I would say it's not unusual, given the context of the organisation and where we've come from and are moving to, that there has been turnover. But there are steps that we have put in place about creating a work environment that's conducive to high performance and retention of people that are offering high performance. And we've got some very deliberate plans with staff about...
So you've got some plans. Okay, so the board discussed this, did they?
It was part of the reporting to
the board discussed it?
Yep.
Yes,
okay, so you've got a plan, do you?
Senator from the organisation and tasked the organisation with coming back to the board ultimately with its sequence of remediation treatments to ensure that we have benchmark improvements in the outcome.
Okay, well, can you supply on notice, I'm just trying to finish up with you because I know other people want to do stuff, so can you supply on notice a summary of the findings, the staff survey, and whatever your rectification plan is in broad terms that's been to the board and discussed at the board on Tuesday?
Yes, Senator. I would point you there is a question on notice we've already responded to, or it may yet to be tabled, but we'll look at that in relation to the results. But I'm very happy to take a question on notice in relation to the plan that we've got.
And were you part of this discussion, Mr Rimmer, on Tuesday?
I observed this discussion.
Did you say anything?
I can't recall whether I said anything in relation to this particular part of the agenda.
All right. I just want to ask you about the board meeting minutes from the 29th of May 2025. There was a discussion that went along the lines of the chair noted that the lumbar supporting grey chair should be utilised as a preference in Housing Australia meeting rooms for meeting attendees' comfort and better back health for longer meetings. Is there any reason why that was included in the minutes?
So, Senator, firstly, let me say
it's quite
very well supported by the chair.
Yeah.
So, Senator, I know that can be read out of context, and it does seem extraordinary that something like that might be recorded in the minutes.
Bit unusual,
but if I could just speak to at the start of every board meeting, there is a reflection that we call a safety moment that is designed to create a conversation about matters that go to staff safety and wellbeing. It's very good practice for boards to do this. On that particular occasion, it was raised. There was a discussion about it. I would, on reflection, suggest that maybe the minutes went to an extent that may have been unnecessary. But I would acknowledge that it is a real issue and that it is something that for people who have prolonged periods of sitting, it can cause pain and discomfort.
I appreciate your candour. My final question is just about the ANAO audit of Housing Australia Future Fund. Has anything happened on that front yet, Mr Langford?
Senator, that's a matter that's best addressed by the Treasury. The ANAO audit is into Treasury's administration of the Housing Australia Future Fund. That audit program is underway in accordance with the timeline agreed by the ANAO.
Have you met with them?
I haven't personally met with them, but my team has been.
Who has?
So I met with them in an introductory meeting.
Yeah, when was that?
I might need to take on notice. I think it was around November. It was around the commencement of or September, October. It was at the commencement of the review. The team has been working very closely with the ANAO throughout the last few months, providing documentation and supporting their analysis, as you'd expect in the ordinary course of supporting audit activity.
Very important process. Thank you.
Just to make sure I correct answer, and there was part of an exchange with Senator Bragg a few minutes ago where I think his question went to the veracity of an answer that Senator Wong gave in the Senate to a question from him. I think we established that, Senator Bragg, your claim that somehow Senator Wong misled. I think we've dealt with that. I now just want to turn to your question, which I've been provided, and you claimed that your question went to the delivery under the HAF.
Yeah.
Just to remind you, in case you've forgotten, your question said, my question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Across the government's housing funds, how many dwellings have now been completed because of Commonwealth support since Labor came to office? What is the number? I'm not looking for how many houses were funded. were approved or are in the pipeline. My question is, how many were completed and are available to occupy? Not only have you misrepresented Senator Wong, you've misrepresented yourself.
I'd have to check that,
Senator.
But thank you.
That's, I mean, the problem...
I've asked you so many times these questions.
The problem with turning up and leading with the smear...
We never get straight answers.
...is you actually have to do the work. And as you've acknowledged, this is complicated. Like, the administration of this scheme is complicated. Have some difficulty, clearly, getting on top of it. I understand that's led to a reflexive negativity, but it shouldn't lead you to misrepresent Senator Wong, and it certainly shouldn't lead you to misrepresent yourself.
Well, we've asked, I think, 1,000 times how many houses is there.
Well, you've got an answer every time,
right?
And the number, as I keep saying, gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Every day, more houses are built. We don't go around knocking houses down. We go around building houses, and the number gets bigger and bigger in an incremental and steady way. And we're holding ourselves accountable, including here, for the progress of that important work on behalf of Australians who want to see a home.
So far, it's been a very expensive endeavour. Very expensive. $80 billion for fewer houses.
All right, thank you,
Very expensive.
Senator Bragg. We will rotate the call now to Senator Pocock.
Thank you, Chair.